Watch this.
Brown water. Some of Boise's bench dwellers have been dealing with it for a while. Suez Water has heard all about it. In fact, they want to hear about it and fix it. It's known for being an irreversible journey into the wilderness. We take you to one of the deepest canyons in the country, a remnant of a real-life threat, a callback to a Cold War contingency that you can now own in a 208 redial. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? But can complaining about an issue really help create change? Well, not always, but in this case, the answer is yes. For years, people across Boise have been complaining about discolored water in their homes. Well, now Suez Water is fast-tracking a series of projects to help fix that problem. They hope to do 2 years of work in just 15 months. Why? Joe Paris says it's because you're all really squeaky wheels.
All right, first things first. Your discolored water on the Boise Bench, it's safe.
We know the water's safe, but we need to deal with the aesthetics. It's not an unfixable problem, it's just a complex problem, and we'll get there.
Discolored water is not something you want to see coming out of the faucet, but this isn't a new problem. People on the Boise Bench have been posting pictures like these for years. So here's what Suez Water wants to tell you.
That we heard you, and that we agree we need to make some changes in the bench, and we are moving this forward as quickly as we can.
Jane Kreller with Suez says that the utility company is putting their money where their mouth is. They've launched $1.8 million worth of new projects, including a new filtration system, water main replacements, and seasonal system flushing. And those projects are specifically tailored to where a lot of the issues have been reported, the Boise Bench.
Over the last year, we've asked customers to call us whenever they have a discolored water complaint, and we map every single one of those complaints.
Jane tells me that those maps pointed to the bench and helped them find factors that caused the issues. So Jane, what is the problem here?
They have aging metallic mains. They have a relatively closed system. We know that the water chemistry reacts with the water chemistry of other sources that can cause oxidation. We know that there's minerals in the well naturally occurring.
Suez adds that they are also working on getting better on another front. That's telling you what's going on.
But we didn't always tell people what we were doing. So we're trying to open it up a little bit so people know, here's where we're flushing, here's what we're doing, here's why you have discolored water.
Ground zero for the discolored water complaints is, of course, a lot of it right here in the call center in Boise. But another popular place where people were complaining about the color of their water, Facebook. And a very popular spot, the Boise Bench Dwellers Facebook group. And guess who you'll find there addressing all your water complaints? It's Jane.
Well, that's me. I'm on Facebook. I'm a member of the Boise Bench Dwellers, and I try to keep them updated on what we're doing.
So Jane, let me get this straight. Did complaining really help?
I guess it did, and I think we were also we really want the solution too. That criticism is going to make the water better. They've helped us solve the problem.
All right, last things last. Jane, is the discolored water safe?
The water is safe.
So with almost $2 million worth of projects coming up, people are already asking us, will their water bills immediately go up? The answer is no. They're not going to go up because water prices are regulated and adjusted. But this big project, again, it won't play into a factor in your bill. Brian, these projects are not the perfect solution, but Jane was telling me that they're working hard on it, and it could take a few years to really clear up the entire problem, but they care. And she says they care because the people at Suez, they live here, and they drink that water too.
Okay, so they do their own testing, though, throughout the year, right? And so you're telling me that without these complaints, if they tested the water, it came back the yellow or the brown color, they'd be like, well, as long as it's safe, it's fine. We're not going to mess with it?
Well, the issue here was never about the water quality. Jane told me earlier that it's never been an issue of not having water that you could bathe in or drink. It has been the discoloration. It's been the aesthetic of it. And people, as we know, they're very picky about how things look, as they should be.
Sure.
That's really why they had to fix the problem.
Nobody wants brown water coming out of their tap.
No, you don't.
All right. Thanks, Joe. In what has become a bitter bipartisan world in our nation's capital, here in Idaho, there's unanimous support for the men and women who have fought for our country. Both Republican and Democratic senators at the Idaho State House voted yesterday to build a new veterans home. According to the Idaho Press, the $107 million facility will be built on the HP campus in West Boise. It would replace the current Idaho State Veterans Home that is in downtown Boise, which is fittingly on the side of the old Fort Boise. But it's in a building that's so old they can no longer get parts for their elevators. At 56 years old, it's actually younger than many of the residents, but it's long overdue for an upgrade. And by the way, Idaho operates state veterans homes in Boise, Lewiston, and Pocatello, but Boise's is the largest at 158 beds. The resolution now moves to the House for approval. A nationwide ban on most flavored e-cigarette products goes into effect today. The problem is a noticeable loophole, which means teenagers will still have access to nicotine vapes. The ban covers a number of, quote, kid-friendly flavorings like mint and fruit, but that ban only applies to specific types of devices, including refilled pods or cartridges. All other devices will be left on the market. Menthol and tobacco flavorings are still legal, by the way. Well, loophole or not, several Eagle High School students have taken vaping matters into their own hands and handed it over to the legislature to get it taken care of, proving you don't have to be elected to get laws through the Idaho State House. The vaping epidemic prompting them to introduce a bill that would make illegal smoking or vaping in a car when anyone under 18 years old is also in that car. Get caught? Well, the bill says it would fine you $75. And if you, like me, were squished into the back seat of a car for a road trip with your smoking parents who thought rolling the window down about 1.5 inches was enough to filter the air, this is a long time coming. It now heads to the House Health and Welfare Committee for debate. We get this a lot, a question about the Idaho lottery and how it's supposed to help pay for the state schools. The power of the Powerball. Believe it or not, there's a bomb shelter in Boise. There's lots of space, lots of ventilation, and it'll cost you a lot more than it did decades ago. Join the 208. We want to hear your comments and questions and maybe your comedic skills. Text us at 208-321-5614. Please include your name and the hashtag the208. Maybe we'll share it, answer it, or laugh about it at the end of the show. If you weren't watching yesterday, we talked about sales tax and how the revenue is divided. There's a bill working its way through the State House right now that would shift 1% of the general fund to pay for transportation needs like easing traffic jams. That's just one of the several tax-related bills that lawmakers are considering that are supposed to help homeowners and drivers and especially schools. And maybe because of that, we've had a lot of questions from our viewers, and one of them wanting to know about the lottery's relationship with public education. Linda texting us this and asking, I was watching the 5 p.m. news. We like to call it the 208. We're talking about taking money from property sales or gas for various projects. What about the money from the lottery? Where does that money go? Well, in the 2019 fiscal year, the lottery returned $60 million to the people of Idaho. So how does that money actually get divided up? For the last 30 years, on average, about 24 cents of every dollar in lottery ticket sales goes into an account. By state law, every year on July 1st, that money is then split into 3 public funds: the Department of Education's Public School Building Fund account, the Bond Levy Equalization Fund, which helps pay off interest on school bonds, and the Department of Administration's Permanent Building Fund. Basically, if the state wants to build a new building or repair a building, they pull from this fund. So out of that 24 cents for every dollar, the Department of Education gets 62.5%, or 15 cents. The Permanent Building Fund gets the rest, which is 37.5%, or 9 cents. And you can see how much money exactly each public school in Idaho received from the Idaho Lottery and what it was used for. You can find it on the lottery website. Find a link to that at ktvb.com, by the way. The Boise School District, for example, used their 2018 dividend for roofing, flooring, and HVAC repairs, while the Council School District was able to completely remodel their elementary school bathrooms. I asked the Idaho Lottery about this, and it basically comes down to this. You want to increase the amount of money the lottery gives to schools? We need to buy more Powerball tickets. Good question, Linda, and thanks for that. Do you have a question or maybe something you'd like us to look into? Just text us, email us, post in our Facebook group. You can find us there at the 208, hashtag the 208. We have so many ways for you to get in touch with us. No reason not to ask. We'll do our best to answer it.
In Boise, it's still raining. Not my favorite, actually, but maybe for some of you, but I doubt it. Okay, but we've got 44 degrees here. Got a contrast for you to begin with. McCall has 32 degrees. Brundage is saying 25 inches of snow in the past 24 hours. For the time that I've been here, you don't see that much in the mountains. We get heavy snow, but right on a resort, 25 inches. And then the contrast is you see the sunshine here in Sun Valley, they're 33 degrees, and they've had next to nothing in the way of snow out of this storm for the past 24 hours. So this storm system basically runs from here into Boise, up into the mountains where you see some of the snow, same thing for Stanley, but then down here in Haley and Twin Falls, generally on the dry side. And some of you probably out here toward Ontario and Caldwell, the same thing. Not a lot in the way of showers out that way, and most of it has just been showers that has moved down just off the foothills and down over Boise. So because of that, I look ahead to 8 o'clock this evening, still shows some showers around there for Boise. Here's midnight, still has a slight chance. Down here through most of the corridor, though, is dry. Now tomorrow morning, there it is again, about 9 o'clock in the morning. So it's hard for me just to kick this thing out, especially toward tomorrow morning. But there are a few showers. I'd like to kick it out, but there are a few showers that are still lingering around for the morning hours. But then watch this. It starts to retreat. As you look at this, it starts moving back up into the mountains. Even McCall starts to dry up. This is through Saturday morning. But now Saturday, this is midnight, I should say. Saturday morning, 5, 6 o'clock, there's still a little chance of some rain and snow into Saturday morning. So let me show you this in the 7-day forecast. 50 degrees for the high temperature tomorrow. You see Saturday drops to about a 45. These showers, mixture of rain or snow, that's for early Saturday morning. I think tomorrow is fairly decent throughout most of the day. Boise has a chance of a shower in the morning. Could be isolated during the day. We might even get a little sunshine, and that drives that up to 50 degrees. There's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Next week, temperatures start to drop, especially at night. See next Thursday, high 37, and the low temperature down to 26 degrees, but it's dry next week. So Twin Falls, 47. You see Shoshone with 43. Central Mountains, you see 39 degrees for Sun Valley. Same thing for Haley for a high. Mountain locations, there could still be another 1 to 3 inches of snow from McCall before this storm system moves out. And tomorrow's high temperature is 36. Now you notice in the valley, we've got some temperatures around 50 degrees. Ontario 53, Caldwell, Nampa, you got it, 53 for tomorrow. I think Boise, because of some of those early showers, will keep the overcast in here for a while. There could be some areas of fog. And tomorrow's high temperature, hope you enjoy it, will be 50 degrees.
It was built to save Boiseans in case of a nuclear attack. The Cold War may be over, but you can own a piece of Highlands history for a cool $2 million. River of No Return. Sounds pretty scary. how Idaho's largest wilderness area got its menacing moniker. And let us know what you think of the show, something we've talked about or want us to talk about. Join our conversation. Text us at the 208, that number 208-321-5614. Be sure to include your name and the hashtag the 208. We'll hear some of what you have to say at the end of the show. In September of 1961, President John F. Kennedy sent a letter to the country. Published in an issue of Life magazine, he wrote, "My fellow Americans, nuclear weapons and the possibility of nuclear war are facts of life we cannot ignore today." End quote. He went on to say, because of that threat, the U.S. was going to start building fallout shelters across America. Believe it or not, that project began here in Boise, and that shelter is for sale, but not for the first time. We take you back in time with a segment we're calling the 208 Redial. It was 1960, the height of the Cold War, and Boise decided to go somewhat underground, carving the country's first community fallout shelter out of the hills near a new housing development known as the Highlands. The Federal Civil Defense Administration kicked in $122,000 for its construction, a prototype that would spawn thousands of others coast to coast. Called the Highlands Community Shelter, Governor Robert Smiley cut the ribbon in 1961, with Boise families helping to stock it and take a tour of the dormitories and decontamination showers. It was built to save 1,000 people, but not just anyone. If needed, you and your family could gain access for $100. Then in 1972, it was sold to the Boise School District, who used it for office and storage space. Jump ahead to 2003 as we jump back to a story we did nearly 17 years ago, with the school district looking to unload it.
It served many, many years. It still has a lot of life left in it, and it's up for sale for $125,000.
It sold for $150,000, bought back then by Boise businessman John Farron.
These blueprints will show the actual structure.
The 14,000 square feet left him a lot of room to spare, which is why he's been lending it to local bands looking for a place to practice. John is now hoping to sell the former fallout shelter.
And again, it's structurally sound, very solid.
And according to John and Zillow, this 4 large bedroom, 3-bath with individual stalls, 2-story mid-century, almost modern home
Light, airy. You can walk on your roof. You can mountain bike on your roof as well.
can be yours for $2.1 million. Also in that real estate listing, it says it's very energy efficient. It's because it was meant to keep out radiation. Well, for factual sake, everyone likes to call it a bomb shelter because it's just fun to say, but it is actually a fallout shelter meant to protect people from nuclear fallout, not to survive an actual blast from a bomb. It's quite the return on investment though, John, by the way. Bought it for $150,000, looking to sell it for $2.1 million, and it could be yours. You know, we have so many great responses. We got them yesterday from our What's Your Sign segment. We decided to bring it back today. You ever see that game crossing sign along the road and think it would be cool to see Monopoly and Risk and Connect 4 holding hands and trying to get across the road? Is that just me? Well, this sign reminded me of those odd thoughts of mine that I haven't said aloud until just now. The sign reads open range with what else? An open range plopped right below it. This is from Mel Elgiston, who posted this picture in the 208 Facebook group. Mel says the picture taken up by Wallowa Lake heading towards Hell's Canyon. Well done, Mel. That's awesome. And again, if you've seen a sign that made you laugh or upset, or even wonder what it meant, send us a picture. Tell us about it. Tell us where you found it. We'll try to solve that puzzle if there is one, or we'll laugh right along with you. Email us, join our Facebook group and post it there, or on our social media accounts you can see right here. Remember, use the hashtag the208. You can also text it to us, 208-321-5614. Again, include your name, and we're going to get to some of your comments that you send in during the show at the end of the show, like you have been, like these here. It holds one of the deepest gorges in North America, deeper than even the Grand Canyon, and home to steep, rugged mountains, thick forests, and wild whitewater. The Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness Area is 2.3 million acres of natural bliss. But the name makes it seem more menacing than it really is, a place from which you won't be coming back. For this week's Get to Know Idaho, we're going into the wild, smack in the middle of the Gem State. Stretching from the Twin Peaks, which reach to 10,000 feet, to where the Salmon River leaves the wilderness at just under 2,000 feet above sea level, it's the largest connected wilderness area in the lower 48. Big enough to hold 4 national forests, the Frank Church River of No Return wilderness area is surrounded by steep slopes that were carved out by running water more than 100 million years ago. The Salmon River Mountains in north central Idaho reach higher than 9,000 feet in some places, with the gorge as deep as 4,000 feet, making it second only to Hell's Canyon along the Idaho-Oregon border as the deepest in North America. The name, River of No Return, comes from the days when boats could float down the main Salmon River, but the rapids and fast water made it impossible to go back up, which is why, in 1980, Congress declared it as the River of No Return. And 4 years later, they added U.S. Senator Frank Church's name to it as an ode to his legacy, which was always to preserve this wild central core of Idaho. These days, jet boats make it so upstream isn't out of the question, but the River of No Return has made many not really want to leave it behind anyway. Well, last year, the U.S. Mint releasing the Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness Quarter as part of its America the Beautiful Quarters collection. The design depicts a piloted drift boat on the rushing river encompassed by the trees and, of course, the rock formations of the wilderness. We will be right back. Take a look at some of your questions and comments, kind of like this one right here. Brian, I have no problem with whether you're wearing a tie or not. You look great either way. Hey, thanks. We'll be right back.
Coming up at the top of the hour on the news at 6, the clock continues to tick in the case of the 2 missing Rexburg children and their still uncooperative mother who remains elusive in Hawaii. The latest in the search for any morsel of a clue. Remains found along the Salmon River last month are those of a Boise man who disappeared more than 2 years ago. And now through Valentine's weekend, an annual event in Boise that's helped build a safety net for Idahoans living with HIV for nearly 30 years. And it just keeps growing. All that and more tonight on the News at 6.
All right, wrapping up the 208 with some of your comments and questions. Got this one in from Randy. This is helpful. Hey, Brian, it's pronounced Wulua Lake in the Wulua Mountains. Good to know. Thank you for sending that in. I will remember that. Wulua Lake. I like that. That's the one with the sign that said open range. Hey, Brian, as daylight saving time quickly approaches, where do we stand with our legislature and Idaho opting out of the time change? Well, unfortunately, that bill has kind of taken a step backwards, coming out of the House back to committee. And we got some word last week when it actually was sent to the House that it didn't look good. It didn't have the support of a lot of people in the legislature, mostly because a lot of the people would rather have those later evenings or longer daylight hours into the evening. So I don't know. We'll see what happens when it comes out of that committee, if it does come back out of the committee. But right now, it kind of took a step back, and we'll kind of see how that plays out over the coming weeks. Thanks for your message and your text. You want to stir the hornet's nest? Ask what is truth. Hang on and for the ride. Love the show. Keeps the brain juices flowing. That's from Joe in Ontario. Thanks, Joe, for sending that in. That's what we want to do. We want to ask the truth, no matter what it is, because we have the same questions that you do. We also want to ask them and answer them like you would to your friends. Brian, my hubby and I look forward to the 208 every day. We learn things, and it gives us things we can discuss as well. That's what we want. That's awesome. Glad to hear it. Thank you so much for sending in your messages today. We're going to do it all again tomorrow and hopefully keep you educated and keep asking for the truth. We'll see you then.